Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First and foremost, I'd like to call upon Hafsatullah, Insh'Allah, to recite a few ayahs of the Quran, Insh'Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. طه ما أنزلنا عليك القرآن لتشقى إلا تذكرة لمن يخشى تنزيلا ممن خلق الأرض والسماوات العلى الرحمن على العرش استوى له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وما بينهما وما تحت الثرى وإن تجهر بالقول فإنه يعلم السر وأخفى الله لا إله إلا هو له الأسماء الحسنى وهل أتيك حديث موسى إذ رأى نارا فقال لأهلهم كثوا إني آنست نارا لعلي آتيكم منها بقبس أو أجد على النار هدى فلما أتيها نودي يا موسى إني أنا ربك فاخلع نعليك إنك بالوادي المقدس طوى وأنا اخترناك فاستمع لما يوحى إنني أنا الله لا إله إلا أنا فاعبدني وأقم الصلاة لذكري صدق الله العظيم.
Without further ado, mashallah, I'd like to welcome Mufti Liaquat Zaman from Suffa Institute here in Birmingham. Inshallah, he is very knowledgeable on the matters of Zakat. Inshallah, he'll be delivering a program, a presentation, going into much detail on our obligations and how to fulfill them. Inshallah, so without further ado, I'll pass it across to Mufti Zaman.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So inshallah the Zakat presentation will hopefully finish just before Fajr time, inshallah. It's going to finish in about an hour's time, inshallah, hopefully. So it should take whole thing should take about an hour, just maybe over an hour, and then whilst I am delivering the presentation, you guys can ask the questions. You just raise your hand, inshallah, and hopefully, inshallah, I should be able to answer your questions. And at the end, there's going to be Q&A as well, inshallah. Okay, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So first of all, what I want you to do, just for 1 minute, is write down on your phones everything that you think you have to give zakat on that you own. You don't have to tell us what you own. We're not HMRC, but you can just write it down, inshallah. Just 1 minute. Anything you feel as though you have to give zakat on it, that belongs to you. So I'll give you 1 minute for that, inshallah. to keep in mind whatever you have written down, inshallah. We'll come back to that. I just want you guys to understand, not everything that you own is what we call zakatable. Right? Not everything that you have is something that you have to give zakat on. There's only a few things that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that are zakatable. So, first of all, what does zakat actually mean? Okay, so zakat has 4 meanings. So there are 4 meanings to zakat that we have to understand. What is the most common meaning of zakat that we know? Charity, yeah? That's the most common meaning of zakat. However, charity is just one of the 4 meanings of zakat that we will be touching upon, inshallah. The first meaning of zakat is that it is purity. So when you give your zakat, it is like a person who removes the weeds from their garden. Yeah, so you remove the weeds from your garden, what happens is the rest of the flowers benefit, the rest of the plants and trees give more fruit. And this is exactly what happens when it comes to zakat. So when you give your 2.5% of your zakat, Allah is going to purify the rest of your wealth. Now, of course, you can't see purification, just like those of us who went and did wudu. We couldn't see the purification on our body. Nothing's really changed. But it allows us to pray salat now. So similarly with our wealth over time, it gains what we call spiritual impurity. Zakat purifies this. And just as we know, the more impure something is, the less likely it is to benefit. Number 2 is growth. So growth means when you give your zakat, just like when you remove the weeds from your garden, the rest of the garden benefits and it starts to grow. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to make the rest of your money grow. So how much zakat do you have to give? 2.5%. That means the remainder, 97.5% of your wealth is going to start growing now. Now, unfortunately, we don't have any special technology that can see our wealth grow. I mean, you can check if you got shares and stocks, you probably see your wealth grow. But normally people can't see their wealth grow. But if Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam have promised that our wealth will grow, then this is our belief, and it will grow. The third is blessing. So how many of us have spent £100 and we spent it within a few hours? And how many of us have spent £100 and it took us several days to spend £100? Right? This is all because of the barakah, the blessing that exists inside of this wealth. So this is what happens when you give your zakat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He blesses the mal. You think about this. If you look at the wealth that the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum had, they had no homes like we have. The smallest home that we have would be the most luxurious home that the Sahabas would have ever seen. But Allah put barakah in their lives. They lived their lives, their children were educated, they prayed in the masjid, they died as well in their communities, and they had blessing in whatever wealth they had. So it's all about barakah. Doesn't matter where you live in the UK or around the world, if you have barakah in your life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you contentment and peace with whatever you have. May Allah give us that. And finally, number 4 is what I said in the beginning, charity. Right? So when you give your zakat, then you have to give it to certain people. Right? And this is one of the beautiful things about Islam, which is Islam encourages us to take care of other people more than we even take care of ourselves. Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they used to feed their guests even though they had little food for themselves. So this shows that this is what one of the core teachings of Islam is about. We help other people. And alhamdulillah, I haven't seen this. Maybe you have seen it, I don't know. But I don't think there's any other religious community in our area that we live in that there's so many charity projects like the Muslims do. Right? Who will actually take out their own time to travel around the world and to help feed only for the sake of Allah, not to gain anything else. Maybe there are other charity organizations, but maybe they have some ulterior motive, Allah knows best. But alhamdulillah, as Muslims, this is something we should try to endeavor. Right? So have this love for charity in your hearts, inshallah. Now, what is zakat? This is the most important thing we have to understand. Right? So what I want you to do, I want you to read this definition of zakat. If you can't read, it's okay. Don't worry. Just look at the screen. Can you read? Okay, so this definition, it contains three major points that we have to understand. Okay, what are the three major points? Number one is that zakat is an act of worship. Okay, zakat is an act of worship. One day a guy phones me asking me if I can help him with his zakat. I said okay. So he says to me on the phone, he says, MashaAllah brother, I every year give my zakat. I said MashaAllah, it's excellent. He goes, I give it to the taxman. I said what? He explained to me, he goes, isn't zakat giving it to people? And that taxman takes that money and then the government uses it to help build roads and this and that. I don't know if the government builds roads in your area. So I said to him, MashaAllah, how many years have you been doing this for? So he said to me, I've been doing it for 20 years, odd years. Oh no. I said, you need to speak to a scholar and work out how much zakat you owe. Because that is not how zakat works, because zakat is an act of worship. Any act of worship in Islam can only be accepted by Allah if it's done exactly how Allah and the Rasul have instructed us. Even if you were to decide to pray salat, but one person decided, you know what, I'm going to face that way. Yeah? And he wanted to pray all of his salat facing that way, it won't be accepted. Why? Because he didn't follow the instruction. In worship, you have to follow whatever the instruction is. And this, unfortunately, man, he now has to repeat all those years of zakat. So it's an act of worship. Number two is you have to have wealth over a certain threshold. So we will talk about this threshold. In Arabic, the word for threshold is nisab. And we'll talk all about nisab when the time comes, inshallah. So it's an act of worship, number one. Number two, you have to have a certain amount of wealth. So that means if you have less than this amount, you don't have to give zakat. Right? Don't have to. So you need to know, do I have this amount in my possession? And number three, the third part of this definition is you have to give 2.5%. How much is 2.5%? 2.5% is like this. If you get a pizza, have you ever had pizza? Okay, you get a pizza, you cut it up into 40 slices and give one slice to someone. The rest is yours. Yeah? Is that enough? That's it. That's all you have to do. One slice of that 40 goes to someone else and the 39 slices are yours. That's all you have to give. That's all Allah is asking for once a year. That's it. So 2.5% we give. Now, who receives zakat? So now we understand the definition. Three things in the definition: worship, threshold, and 2.5%. Who now receives zakat? Because zakat is an act of worship, and Allah tells us who can take zakat. Can HMRC take your zakat? No, they can't take your zakat because it's an act of worship and they are not the recipient. So Allah in the Quran, Allah is very kind and Allah tells us how to live a life which is going to make it very comfortable for us in this dunya. Allah Ta'ala mentions 8 categories of people who zakat can be given to. Okay, so this is in Surah Baqarah. So Allah says, number 1, the poor. Number 2, the needy. What's the difference between poor and needy? So ulama say the difference between poor and needy is this. The poor people are those who have wealth below the threshold, and the needy people are those people who have nothing in life. Have you ever seen someone who has nothing in life? You've probably seen the people of Gaza, who literally have nothing, everything's gone. So these would be people who are needy people. Poor people might be even living in our own area. Maybe one of us here is poor, because all we have to have is wealth below the threshold. Number 3, the third category, those who work on administrating zakat. Now, what does this mean then? So Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he only follows what Allah tells him. Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is not going to go against Allah. Right? So Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he was the leader of the Muslim community in Medina. And obviously you have to have people that will go and collect the zakat from the rich and then have to distribute it amongst the poor. And the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he can't do this himself, so he appoints zakat collectors. So these zakat collectors are allowed to receive zakat as their wage. So the government collects the zakat, and anyone who works in the zakat sector collecting and distributing zakat, is given a wage from which pot? Zakat pot. Now the question is, but these people are not poor. How can these people be given zakat? So the ulama say the reason why they are given zakat is because this is a job. If you take these people out of the equation, receiving and distributing zakat is going to become very difficult. Like for example, imagine the imam. Imagine the imam doesn't get a wage. Yeah, what's going to happen? Imam Sahib not going to come, and then someone's going to say, you go forward, mashallah, he's going to go forward one day. Then maybe his qiraat is not good, his tajweed is not good, and then someone's going to have an argument, and then every masjid is going to have. So the best way to deal with it is have everything organized. So Allah tells Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that the zakat collector is allowed to receive a wage according to how much work is done from the zakat pot. Does that make sense? Now ideally this should be done by the Muslim government. The Muslim government does this. We don't go ourselves and decide, I saw a dream that I'm going to collect zakat, so you knock on everyone's door and you collect zakat, and you come back home to your front room, and then you say, okay, one for me, I'm the collector, and 39 for everyone else. No, this isn't how we do, because otherwise there's lots of corruption, and shaitan can easily whisper to us and we end up abusing the system. So this is the third category. Now, number 4, the fourth category is those for whom hearts are supposed to be brought together. This is known as mu'allafatul qulub. So what are the people whose hearts are meant to be brought together? So Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he used to give zakat to several groups of people. Number 1, he used to give zakat to people who were very close to accepting Islam. Very close to accepting Islam. Maybe, let's say for example, we're living in Medina, and Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam knows in Medina there's some people there, some mushriks, and all you have to do is give them a bit of financial support, and that's it. Tomorrow they'll start coming to the masjid. This is one group. Another group is a whole village whose leader is very influential, non-Muslim. So Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam goes, gives the leader money, gives him a handout from the zakat money, and now this makes him feel that he needs to defend the Muslims when the time comes. So these are some of the people. Ulama have mentioned up to, Mullah Yusuf Banuri mentioned up to 7 categories of mu'allafatul qulub. 7 categories. I've told you 2, but the ulama have mentioned up to 7 categories of them. So this was the whole point of this, was to defend Islam, because Islam was weak and we need the support of the non-Muslims in Medina as much as we can. Now once Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, he becomes the Khalifa, some non-Muslims who used to be given zakat before, when Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was alive, they come to collect their zakat. Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu says no. He says, when you used to receive zakat, that was because Islam was weak and we needed support. Now we don't need your support. So now we're no longer going to give you zakat anymore. So this fourth category now, there's a difference of opinion amongst the scholars about this fourth category. Has this fourth category finished totally? Is it over, that's it, until Yawm al-Qiyamah? Is it over just like drinking wine was allowed and then it's over now until Yawm al-Qiyamah, no one is allowed to drink wine? Or is this category put on pause? Meaning, if the need for it comes again, the Muslim leader can now start giving these people zakat again. So this is the difference between the ulama. Majority of the Hanafi ulama, they say no, it's over until the Day of Judgment. And other ulama say no, there is permissibility if this need comes again. Anyway, that's something which the ulama mentioned. We don't need to deal with this. So for us, this category no longer exists. Okay. Number 5, those to free those in bondage. So Islam encourages slaves to be freed. Yeah, as much as you can free the slaves. Sayyidina Abu Bilal radiallahu anhu was a freed slave. Yeah, and Suhaib al-Rumi radiallahu anhu, a freed slave, and so many others, so many ulama of this ummah were freed slaves. So if there is a slave in Medina and he comes to you and says to you, I want to go free, my master has said to me, if I collect £10,000 I'll go free. You're allowed to give him your zakat money, and he can collect all zakat money and he can go free. So Allah says this, whether we like it, whether we don't like it, that's up to us. Whether we want to give, we don't have to give him zakat money, but Allah has allowed this. Number 6, for those people who are in debt. Some people might have a nice car, they might have a house, they might wear nice clothes, nice mobile phone, but they are in debt. And because they are in debt, if the debt is more than the assets that they possess, these people can take zakat. One day a brother phoned me and he says to me, he had a car showroom. This was 9 years ago. Had a car showroom, and he said the car showroom, something happened with his business and it flopped, and he owes people £2 million. So he has a house, he has a car, everything, but he owes people £2 million. And I said to him, if you're honest and you're truly in debt, you can receive zakat. Now I don't know who's going to give him £2 million of their zakat. Yeah, but the point is that he becomes eligible for zakat. And one of the reasons why debt is so important in Islam is because when people go into debt, debt can make people debilitated. It can stop them from functioning what they're supposed to do in life. They spend so many years trying to earn hard to pay off some debt, and it causes them a lot of problems. Now I will talk more about debt later on, inshallah, yeah, in a bit more detail. But those in debt can receive zakat. Number 7, for the cause of God, for the cause of Allah, fi sabilillah. So fi sabilillah primarily refers to soldiers of the Muslim army who need weapons, who need military aid to go and fight against another country, another enemy. If the military doesn't have enough funds, what's going to happen to the army? Yeah, there's only a certain amount of du'as you can make. The rest is you have to use the means. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he collected funds for the battles. So this is why fi sabilillah. Some of the ulama, like the Hanafi ulama, have also said students of Islamic knowledge also come under fi sabilillah. Now why is the soldier and the student of knowledge considered to be the same here? Because the soldier is protecting the Muslims from the physical outside attacks that can enslave them, and the talibul ilm is protecting the knowledge, the beliefs, and preserving the tradition of the Muslims, the ilm, from academic attack, from ignorance. So this is why the student, in fact, some of the Hanafi ulama, Imam Muhammad rahimahullah has mentioned this, and some later Hanafis have mentioned, that the student of knowledge is one of the other ones, even if he's rich, zakat can be given to him. In the Hanafi school, this is a well-known masala. Even if he's wealthy. But most students, inshallah, they're okay. Yeah. But you can imagine this. And finally, number 8, for the stranded traveler. Stranded traveler is a person who has gone on a journey. Like for example, let's say you've gone for Umrah. You've gone on a safar. And your wallet has been, mashallah, shaved. Yeah. Your wallet has gone. Now you have no cards, you have no access to funds. Your money is at home in your country, you got enough money at home, but in Makkah you have no money. So in Makkah, because you have no money, you're allowed to receive zakat. But only until you get back home. Once you get back home, you can't take anything else. So these are the 8 categories. Any question on these 8 categories?
Just in quickly, do you know in regards to the one that's in debt? Say you said if their debt exceeds their assets. So if someone's in debt £30,000, their asset, such as like a nice car, equates to £20,000. So if they were to sell it all, work out £20,000, so it won't cover the debt. Are they expected to sell what they've got to get that £20,000 and zakat on the remainder, or they're not expected to do that? Then they could get zakat for that whole. Does that?
Okay, I'll mention this for the back. I don't know if the sisters can hear that question, so I'll repeat the question for the sisters. So the question is, if a person has, let's say, £30,000 debt, and they have assets. Now the assets we're talking about are zakatable assets, not anything else. And I'm going to talk about 5 zakatable assets, these 5. So if a person has £30,000 of debt, his house is not his asset, and his personal car is not his asset. It has to be something amongst these 5 assets that I'm going to be talking about, inshallah. Yeah, and if, for example, let's say for example I have £2,000 savings in my bank account, but I have £5,000 debt I owe. So now, if you minus 2,000 from 5,000, how much is that?
3 grand.
Yeah, 3 grand left. So now that 3 grand that I have is minus 3. So now I'm under the threshold, so I can receive zakat. Yeah.
What about people who've got mortgages and stuff?
I'll talk about mortgages when we come to liabilities. So I'm going to say debts, inshallah, I will cover in detail.
I've got one more question, but it could wait till the end if it's a bit more complicated. You said the poor and the needy. So poor, just to clarify, that's below nisab.
Yeah.
Needy,
has mentioned these two just to show different two categories in society that you have.
Okay. So like for example, say you know like there's calamities going on like because the Sudan, for example, if you were to give it to an organisation, then they distribute say goods to the needy, but you don't verify who's under the nisab because of the situation. Can you? Is it different? I don't know.
Later on I'll answer the question with regards to how do you verify someone is actually eligible to receive zakat. So I'll clarify that inshallah. Yeah. Can you, sorry? Zakat can only be given to Muslims according to, like we said about the fourth category, is no longer applicable. So we say it's the 7 categories. Yeah. So the non-Muslims can't be given. Now this is a big problem because sometimes a lot of these charities, when they work in areas, they don't have time to ask people, are you Muslim or non-Muslim? It's not a practical thing. So it's a very difficult thing, situation that people are in. Okay. Now, obviously all of us, we like to be told incentives, virtues of doing something, otherwise we don't like doing it. Right? If your boss did not remind you that you're going to get your paycheck at the end of the month, you probably will stop going work. So incentives are something very, very good for Muslims to remind themselves. So what is the incentive of giving charity? Allah in the Quran says, and I'll summarize it for you. Allah says, those people who give in the path of Allah, charity, it's like a person who takes a seed, plants the seed in the ground, this seed grows, and this seed then now has 7 ears. Like imagine corn, you take 1 grain of corn, you put it in the ground, and it grows a big corn stalk, and then that has 7 pieces of corn, and each piece of corn has 100 grains. So if I say to you that 1 grain, how much did it yield? How much did it produce? You would say 1 to 700, isn't it? Now, would anyone want to invest in a business that's 1 to 700 yield and it's guaranteed, no loss? Alhamdulillah. Allah has promised this to us, and then Allah even says, for some people, Allah will give even more than that. So if I said this to you, guys, I'm going to make you invest in a business that you're going to get 700 times more. It's not one of those Ponzi schemes, yeah? It's the Akhirah ones. Everyone would. So this is what Allah is reminding us. So make sure that we all understand this. Now at the same time, unfortunately, there's some of us who either don't give out zakat or are very lazy in the way they give their zakat. So remember, imagine someone's praying their salat and they are lazy in the way they do sajda. They go, I can't bother putting my head down now. I'll miss this one out. Will their salat be done? So similarly, when it comes to zakat, we always have to remember we have to give the zakat. Sometimes just give a little bit more, just to be on the safe side. But give your zakat exactly how you're supposed to give your zakat. And why? Because it comes in a hadith. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned, and it's in the Quran as well, that whoever is made wealthy by Allah and does not pay the zakat of his wealth on the day of judgment, on the day of Qiyamah, his wealth will be made into a cobra. And this cobra will come to him and will start biting him and start squeezing him, and he will say, I am your wealth. All that money you used to gather in the dunya, that's me. Think about this. How many people are there now in Walsall who have been gathering money for so many years, thinking that they're going to be living for another 20, 30 years, and they die all of a sudden? It's not just a one-off case, it's very, very common. So give your zakat before that time of death comes. And I had a guy who phoned me. He said, my dad did not give zakat for 30 years. He wasn't practicing. His son started practicing. He goes, can I give my dad zakat? I said, you can give it from your own pocket and hope Allah will accept it. Because if your dad didn't do it, that's between him and Allah. But you can't give it from your dad's wealth, because your dad didn't give you permission. Yeah, so this is why we have to be very careful. Some people, their parents might not have been practicing. Unfortunately, make lots of dua for them. Okay, now who pays zakat? Okay, so number 1, adults. According to the ulama, there's 2 positions in regards to do children have to pay their zakat. Lots of people have questions. They have child trust funds, or they might have some money that they're saving up for their children when they grow up. Do children have to give zakat? So according to one group, the Hanafi scholars predominantly, they say no. No zakat on children's wealth. Why? Because if children don't have to pray salat, block your ears, yeah? If children don't have to pray your salat, then they don't have to give zakat. Obviously, it's good if they pray salat. Encourage them to pray their salah, get them into the habit. but legally they don't have to pay. The other madhabs, they say children have to give zakat. So that's why you'll find, if you read their books or listen to their scholars, they'll say to you that if there's a child 5 years old and he's got some, grandma gave him lots of Eid money this year, and he comes up to zakat, he has to give zakat. Now he doesn't give it, the parents will have to give it from his wealth. But the Hanafi school, the school that I'm trained in, we don't have to give zakat on the children's wealth. Right? So sometimes someone might give a little girl gold bracelet or gold earrings. There's no zakat on that until they reach the age of puberty, adult, and then you have to wait 12 months after that. Yeah, so they hit puberty about 13, 14 maybe, and then 12 months after that when they start giving zakat. Okay, number 2, they have to be Muslim, like we said. Zakat is not necessary upon non-Muslims simply because they don't believe in Allah. So then how can they do ibadah? And the third one is you have to be sane. So have to be sane means they know the difference between right and wrong. They know how to pray salat, and they know they have to pray salat. Now there are some people, for example, my grandma, she passed away last year. She had very bad dementia for many, many years. She couldn't tell about praying salat. She forgot how to pray. She forgot how to read Quran. She used to forget if she's prayed or not. In that situation, you would say she doesn't give zakat. And her children don't have to give zakat from her wealth. Allah has just forgiven her, inshallah. So if someone has dementia, someone has extreme autism of a son, that they can't understand what's happening around them, even if they have a lot of wealth that they have been left by inheritance, no zakat on them. Yeah, everyone understand this? Any questions on this? No, and it is very important to understand, you might have people in your family who have disabilities, and if that disability is such that they can't tell the difference between right and wrong and salat and no salat, then there's no zakat. Just to be on the safe side, speak to an alim about your situation, just to be sure, inshallah. Okay. Next, now we're going to talk about threshold now. So this is called nisab in the Arabic language. In the time of the Prophet ﷺ, currency was of 2 types. So you had the gold and the silver. 2 currencies. Yeah, gold coins, silver coins. So Rasul ﷺ, he told the Sahaba 2 nisabs. For those people who possessed gold, he told them a nisab. And for those people who possessed silver, he gave them 1. So what is the gold? The gold is 87.48 grams. Yeah. So what I want you to do quickly, you got a phone, go on your phone, find out what does 1 gram of gold cost today. 1 gram of gold. Yeah, find out what it costs. 24 karat gold. What does it cost?
52, I'm saying.
You're saying guessing. Oh, mashallah. I'll buy your gold of you. If it costs 52, I'll buy it. How much? 118, yeah, per gram. 118. 119 now? Oh, maybe it's changed in the minute. Maybe something's happened in the world. Okay, so now multiply that by 87.48. How much does that come to? If it was the football score, straight away everyone has an answer.
10,410.
10,410. Yeah, so is that a lot? That's a lot, isn't it? So imagine that. Not a lot of people have that kind of assets lying around. Yeah. So okay, 10,410. So let's say 10,400. Let's keep that number. Let's keep that number in mind. 10,400. Okay. Now I want you to do the same with silver. Silver nisab is 612.36 grams. Find out what is the value of 1 silver gram today. 1 gram. What is it? £56.76. £56.7. Okay, multiply that figure now by 612.36. 612.36. What is it?
The answer is 34,757.
Relax, take some water. How much is it?
34,000.
No, it can't be 34,000. Sorry? 1,000? 1,094, yeah? 194, okay, let's say 1,200. So 10,400 and 1,200. Is there a big difference? So why am I saying this for? I'm saying this because in today's times, how do you deal with cash? Is cash going to be measured according to the 10,400 mark? Are we going to say, if you have 10,400 pounds of cash, now you have to give a zakat? If you have 10,300 pounds or less, you don't have to give a zakat. Or are we going to use the silver one, 1,200? So ulama, the contemporary ulama, because cash is a new concept, isn't it? It's not something that was from the Sahaba's days. So the ulama have two opinions on this, even today. Right? Even the ulama amongst the Hanafi scholars have two opinions on this. Some of the ulama say you should stick to gold because when cash first came out, it was measured against gold. And other ulama say that no, you should use the lower of the two value. This is the one I take. I follow the lower of the two value. So I say, if I have 1,200 pounds, I have to give zakat. Right? It's just more easier for people to give zakat to the poor then. Yeah. So if you use the lower value, that means more people are going to help the poor, which is a nice thing. Now, the reason I'm saying that these two figures is because there might be someone, let's say there's someone who goes to university. They've been working in the summer holidays and they've collected for themselves £3,000 and they don't want to go through the riba loans, student loans. They want to try to earn for themselves. They've collected enough money, just about enough money to cover their tuition fees and their maintenance, whatever. But the zakat day comes. So this situation, I would tell them, speak to a scholar and most likely he'll be able to give you a fatwa on the gold. So then for you, it will become much easier. Because now if this person has to give their zakat, they now will have to work to try and pay that off as well. Yeah, so these are kind of situations I would say, always resort back to your scholars and inshallah they should be able to help you, inshallah.
There's a question on that. So another masjid in Morocco was about zakat as well. So it mentioned that Prophet gave gold value to a certain region and silver to another region. But the point he was making is that the grams that he's saying for the gold was equivalent to the silver in terms of value. Okay. So how much it would cost for gold was
okay.
So, and then he was saying that his opinion is that it should be on gold, not on silver, because it was based on gold.
Okay. Yeah, so that, I mean, yes, there are scholars who do define this, like Mufti Liaquat Zaman in South Africa, and some scholars in India, Pakistan, even in this country, they differ on this. So which one should be the standard for cash? Because cash, you can't treat cash as two things. It's either one or the other, they say. However, Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, he says that he has this rule in zakat, which is that you should give whatever is anfa' lil fuqara, which is more beneficial for the poor people. That was his rule, because he said if zakat has been legislated, then this is something which should be for the benefit of the recipient rather than the giver. However, this is not the ultimate rule. His two students differed with him on this masala. That's why there's ikhtilaf on this. Like I said, in these masalas, we have enough people debating, around Ramadan anyway. Inshallah, in the next few days we're going to start that. So let not this be one of those things. Just speak to your scholar, whatever answer your scholar gives, inshallah, you carry on.
Just a tip, if you go on the National Zakat Foundation website, they've actually got the nisab.
Oh, they got it, yeah?
Yeah, nzf.org.uk.
So you can go there, you can figure it out, inshallah. Now this is the beautiful thing about Islam. No one can hide anything in Islam. You can't have a scholar who gives you an answer and he hides the working out. He has to show you the working out, and you can actually test the working out to see if it's correct. This is the beautiful thing about Islam. No, only Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam have ultimate authority. No one else has that. The job of the alim is just to tell you his working out. Okay, now when is zakat paid? Now this is the interesting part. So zakat is not, you don't choose the date for zakat to pay. A lot of people don't know that. Today someone called me and he said to me, I give my zakat. I said to him, when do you give the zakat? He goes, in Ramadan sometime. I go, no, you can't. It has to be on a fixed day. And I had to explain this to him. For so many years, I've just been given it in Ramadan. I give it, that's it. You can't. It has to be given. And listen to this. Zakat has to be given according to the lunar calendar. So we have the solar calendar, which is 365 days, and we have the lunar calendar, which is about 355 days or so. Yeah, it's about 11 days shorter. So the lunar calendar is what we follow. So let's say someone wants to follow the 1st of March. You can't follow the 1st of March. If your zakat was due last year 1st of March, then you have to figure out this year what Islamic date does that fall under. So if the 1st of March last year was, let's say it was, I don't know, 20th of Ramadan, that means in this year 20th of Ramadan is not going to be on the 1st of March, it's probably going to be 10 days earlier. So you have to know. Now why is this important? Because look at the figures, the value of gold and silver and all these things, they change day by day. So you could be working out your zakat on a day that you've chosen, but that's the incorrect day, and you're given too less zakat. You were supposed to work it out 10 days before, 20 days before. So lunar, you have to work out lunar. Okay, so for example, 10th of Ramadan to the 10th of Ramadan. Alright, so 10th of Ramadan will be your zakat anniversary. If you don't know your wife's anniversary, it's okay. But if you don't know your zakat anniversary, it's not okay. Yeah, you're going to be in trouble. Why? Because in the akhirah, we don't want to have to face Allah, and Allah says, you didn't take time. If we pray our salat on time, we don't just say, when do you pray your asr? In the daytime sometime. It won't be accepted. You have to pray at a fixed time. Similarly, your zakat has to be given. So how does this lunar year work then? So I'm a very nice guy. I made a nice diagram for you. Yeah, thanks. MashaAllah. Now I actually made this diagram 10 years ago. So the figures are not exactly today's figures, so you're just going to have to follow them. So this blue wiggly line represents my wealth. So for example, this sometimes in the year my money goes down, I spend, and sometimes I gain money, and then sometimes it goes down, and this is how most people's wealth works. You don't have a fixed amount of wealth in your assets, it fluctuates. So let's say this red line represents the nisab. This was made 10 years ago. 10 years ago, do you know how much 1 gram of gold was? 30 pounds. That's how much it was. And silver was about, I think it was about 20 pence, 30 pence a gram. Yeah, should have invested there. So let's say, for example, when is the first time this line hits the red line? So it hits the red line, let's say on this date, yeah? So what I do now, this is the date I have to mark now. Yeah, so what date is this? Let's say 10th of Ramadan. So I mark this in my calendar. And then I have to check 12 months down the line now. So 12 months down the line on 10th of Ramadan the next year, I check. And where is it now? So the red arrow was where? About 210. And the blue arrow is where? 600. So now, because it's above the red line, it's above the threshold. So now, how much zakat do I have to give? I have to give zakat on 600 pounds. So 2.5, what's 2.5% of 600? 600 divided by 40. 1250? Tell who the accountants are. Oh, so cold.
15 pounds.
Inshallah. In your GCSEs, you're going to do well, inshallah. I was like you, don't worry. Yeah, so anyway, so everyone saying 600. So that's how you're going to, that's now become your, Allah has chosen that day for you. You haven't chosen it. Allah chose it for you. I can't work my zakat out on the 9th or on the 11th because my assets might fluctuate. So this is why it's very important. Now someone might say to me, oh, but I don't know my date. How do you figure out your date? So if you want to do it the hard way, what you have to do is you have to work out all your assets. You make yourself a big massive diagram at home on the wall, and you go back how many ever years, and you have to plot all the amounts that you had, and then you figure out when were you above the red line, and then you mark that, work 12 months down. That's very hard, isn't it? So I've spoken to some ulama, and they said because this is very hard for the average person, what they can do is just from now on fix a date, like 1st of Ramadan, and just stick to that, because it's going to become too hard for people. Okay. Now, let's say for example, look at this diagram. What's interesting about this diagram that wasn't in the old diagram? Yeah, it's gone below 0, yes? If your assets in these 12 months ever go below 0, so that's the red line. If your assets go below 0, your zakat year finishes now. Now you have to wait for the next time for the blue line to go above the red line again, and that's when your new 12 months is going to start. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. You understand? So once it dips below zero, mashallah, mubarak, you don't have to give zakat anymore. Yeah? You wait until it hits the red line again, and now you work out 12 months from there. So let's say, for example, we've decided, you know what, I don't know my zakat date, I'm going to choose the 5th of Ramadan. So in the year I was tracking my assets and it went below zero, let's say in November. So now what happens? It's over. So now when is the next time? The next time is when my assets go below above the red line. That could be any time. But you have to make a note of that, and every year you have to keep track of that. So let's say, for example, this is my assets, the red arrow, and the yellow circle is where it went below zero. And now see where that second red arrow is. That's now where my new, I call it the zakat meter starts again. Yeah, I started my zakat meter again. Any question on that? Yeah.
You know, for like, let's say someone who's taking a student loan, like a lot of people, they don't end up paying that back. So
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. Inshallah. Keep that in mind. Keep that question.
Can you pay your zakat before your zakat date, and on your zakat date deduct that?
Good question. Can you pay your zakat before the 10th of Ramadan? Let's say my date is 10th. Can I pay the zakat before 10th? Yes. You can even pay all your life zakat now. But you have to be very careful. Every 10th of Ramadan, you're going to have to just make sure, check that you haven't underpaid. Yeah? Yes. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes, for example, some Maulana might come to the masjid to collect money for orphans, and you feel that you want to help him with your zakat, but you've got 2 months left for your zakat to come. You can give it in advance. You can even give your zakat after the 10th. You can give it, but ideally give it ASAP.
But it doesn't. If you give it before, it doesn't change your zakat.
Your date doesn't change.
Okay.
Your date is fixed. Now, how do you calculate your zakat? Zakatable assets minus the deductibles, and then you get zakat calculation. Is that a nice diagram? Okay, so look, zakatable assets minus the deductible assets. So now we're going to talk about this now. We're going to talk about these 3 colors: yellow, red, and green. It's like the Jamaican flag here. So now look, what are the zakatable assets? There are 5 zakatable assets that you need to know. Number 1, 5 zakatable assets. Number 1, gold and silver. Number 2, cash. Number 3, business stock. Number 4 is shares. Number 5 is pensions. So I'll say again: gold and silver, cash, business stock, shares, and pensions. These are 5 we're going to talk about now. That's all your zakatable assets. Now, someone's going to say, oh, well, Maulana, in the books we read that there's camels and cows and goats here. And I actually did a talk, and someone said, I've got cows though. And then I said, no. He said, come to me later, I'll work your cows out for you. But I'm sure in Walsall, average person doesn't have cows hiding in their back garden. These are the 5 that we have to worry about. Okay, how do you work out the zakat of gold and silver? Right, so first of all, according to the Hanafi school, you have to give zakat on any gold and silver that you have, even if it's gold jewelry that your wife has. You have to give it. Now, some other madhabs like the Shafis and Malikis and others, they say women do not have to give zakat on gold and silver jewelry if they wear it for the majority of the year. Yeah, because there's a difference amongst the Sahaba, how they dealt with it. We don't have direct instructions from Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam of how we deal with this. Yeah. So the Hanafi say you have to give it because it's gold and silver. Okay, so jewelry. Now in jewelry you don't have to give zakat on diamonds, on pearls, on platinum, on any other metal. No zakat. It's only on gold, and remember, it's an act of worship, so we have to follow whatever was told to us. Yeah? Okay, bullion. Same with bullion. So bullion, gold bars, silver bars. If you got any of those, ornaments at home, you might have some ornaments that have bits of gold in there. Tangible gold, gold that can be measured. You have to give zakat on. Now, what if you have zakat? Someone asked me this, says, Sheikh, what if someone has gold teeth and he's opened his mouth, he smiled, and the lights made his. So I said to him, are you able to take them out and measure them? He said, no. So then you don't have to give zakat. Because because they're part of your body now. They're fixed to your body. But if you can remove them like dentures, you can measure and weigh them, you have to give zakat. So I said to him, the rule is this: if it's something which is painful to remove, then you don't have to give zakat. He goes, okay. What if someone finds it painful to take their wallet out? Take it. I said, I can't argue with this guy now. So anyway, everyone understand the rule. So like computer chips, they have gold inside of it, but it's not tangible, it's not something we can take out and measure. Right? It's spoiled the whole system. Right? So these kind of things, gold leaves, for example, gold leaves, sometimes you have mithai that has some silver leaf on there, or, those are things that are not really measurable, people eat them. But if you have gold leaves and silver leaves for sale, then obviously those are things that are measurable. You just have to put it on the scales and measure them. Anything else about gold and silver? How do you calculate gold and silver now? So there's two ways to calculate gold and silver. There's the expert way, mashallah. You take it to the jewelry store. Jewelry store will check it for you. Remember, all they are weighing in there is the weight of the gold and silver. They are not going to tell you the price of the design or the diamonds and everything with it. Right? So there might be a necklace that's maybe very expensive, but if you weigh it, the amount of gold in there is actually a fraction of the price of the design. So all we're looking for is weight. That's all it is. Take it to the jewelry store. You pay them and they will work it out for you. You don't have to worry. Of course, Muslim ones are the ones who are going to do this. The second way is the cowboy style. Yeah. So what is the cowboy style? Is this. Number one, you weigh it in your kitchen. Number two, Google it. And number three, calculate it. So how do you calculate this? So let's say, for example, your wife has gold. So you take the gold, you put it on the scales, you check the measure, you go on the internet and type this in. Go online, type this in. Scrap gold UK. Scrap gold UK price. Find what the value of gold is in grams. Scrap gold UK. Find it? Scrap gold UK. 110, yeah? Scrap gold. Yeah. And does it tell you what?
It says per gram 24 carat.
24. And what's 22?
24 carat 60 on.
Oh, as if they laugh now.
Yeah, 22 to 100.
Already? What is it? So what's the? You're saying 100?
So for 22 it's 101.
101, yeah? And what's 18?
18 is 79 pounds.
Okay, you see the difference?
45 pounds.
Yeah?
82.
You got 82?
Yeah,
What?
it says 79 to 83.
What website you got, man? No.
GPT.
No, go to, there's a website called Scrap Gold UK. That's a reliable website. That's a website. Scrap Gold. 106 for 24 carat, yeah? And 22? 97. Okay, so you see the difference between that previous value I told you half an hour ago. That's because that was the bullion gold. This is scrap. All women's jewelry is actually scrap gold. Don't tell them that. Because you're telling them that you're buying them gold, and if they find out it's scrap, they're going to say, I didn't marry you for this. Yeah? So, okay. So, now if you're going to weigh it, you might as well be honest as well with them and tell them the real, the quality of the gold as well. Because you probably told them it's 24 carat. And there's no jewelry out there that's 24 carat gold. Because there has to have something else mixed with an alloy. So it's usually, Indian gold is usually 22 carat, and then the other ones. Now, so this is how you work it out, okay? So depending on what carat it is, you're going to work it out. So let's say, for example, obviously men are not supposed to wear gold, right? Gold or silver. But let's say you have a watch at home that has gold bracelet or something. You have to work out the gold value of that. Yeah, and give the zakat on this. Everyone understand this? Okay. Now, number 2. So now we're going to look at zakatable assets of cash now. So what are zakatable assets in cash? Okay, so in cash, yes, you have to give zakat on all the money that you have. And this includes whether it's in your pocket, whether it's riyals, whether it's rupees, whether it's dollars, whether it's in your PayPal account, whether it's in, I don't know, online, digital, whatever, you have to give zakat. Right? given to others to borrow. So if you've given money, so let's say I give Sulaiman Bhai, I give him, £10,000 to borrow, mashallah, because I'm a very generous guy. I gave him £10,000 to borrow. And he's, every year I'm thinking, Sulaiman Bhai, what's happened to that money? And 1 year goes by, 2 years goes by. Every year I have to give zakat, even though I don't have it, because I've lent it out to someone. Now let's say 10 years down the line, he gives me back now. He listens to Maulana's talk in Jummah, that you have to give the rights back to their people. So now he comes and gives me £10,000 back now. So I now have this £10,000. If I haven't been given my zakat on it for every year, I have to backdate all the years of zakat. Yeah, so 10,000, how much is 2.5% of 10,000? 50? 250, yeah? So 10,000 minus 250, how much is that? 9,900. Okay. So now next year I have to minus 2.5% from that. And like that, slowly I'm going to reduce. I mean, nowadays you can easily do is go to ChatGPT, tell ChatGPT a nice prompt, and tell him the figure and work it out for every single year how much you have to deduct. Right? Everyone understand this? Okay.
Just a question. Do you know you said if you've say given out 10 grand, you pay zakat on it every single year. So do you know if after say 10 years, and say you're not going to get it back, but you've been paying zakat on it for 10 years, can you deduct that from your future zakat?
Okay, good question. So there's two things here. Brother asked a question. If a person has borrowed £10,000, or he's lent out £10,000, and he's been giving it every year, and then after 10 years, the guy's not giving it back, and you've forgiven him, what's going to happen to all that zakat that you've given? So first of all, technically, you don't have to give zakat on it until you receive it back. That's the technical. But just to be on the safe side, giving it every year will save you the hassle of backdating. Number two is, what if he has the zakat has been going out of his calculation, he's been giving it, and then after 10 years he forgives the guy. Many of the ulama say you can use that for future zakat. Yeah. Now another one is committee. You guys do committee? Have you heard of committee? Pakistani communities do a lot. Right? Committees, like you have, let's say, 10 people, and everyone puts in £1,000 each, and then at the end of the month, one person number one gets all the money, £10,000 he gets it, and then the next month they all put £1,000 each, and then person number two gets it, like this. Now if you are involved in one of these, all you have to work out is where you are in the rotation. Yeah, where you are. So if you're in the 6-person rotation, that means how much have you given out? 6,000, isn't it? So basically you have to work it out now. Does that make sense? Okay. No, these things you don't give. You don't give zakat on wages that are owed to you. So a brother phoned me. He said to me, he's got a tuition center, and mashallah, our parents are, when it comes to paying madrasa fees and tuition fees, they're like number one. They pay on time, and the Maulanas have to tell them, please don't give your money. Please don't give your money on time. Just this time, just give it later. So if the people, they have this money that's owed to them, right, do they have to backdate that when it comes in? No, they don't. So wages, whatever job it is, you don't have to. Services, you don't have to give backdate zakat. Alright? And mahar. If you have promised your wife that you're going to give her, I don't know, this much gold or this much silver, this much pounds, and it's already been 10 years and she hasn't seen a penny of it yet, right? Then she doesn't have to give zakat on it once she receives all of it. You're the one that was supposed to give the zakat throughout the time.
What happens when you're doing business, and you have a customer that actually overdue on invoices? So you might have £10,000 invoices overdue, and that falls on your zakat date. Is that classified as the same as wages, or is that?
Yeah, right. So again, this is services, isn't it?
Yeah.
So services, there is no zakat on services when you receive it. It's only if you have that cash on your zakat anniversary, the 10th of Ramadan. If you have it, you give zakat. If you don't have it, no zakat.
Similarly, what if you provided them with goods, and they
So
have
goods going to come next. These are all services, wages for services. Number 2 and 3 now. Zakatable assets in business stock now. So how does business stock work? So business stock, very, very easy. Right? So you have to give zakat, yes, on inventory. Inventory, let's say I have a chip shop. in the chip shop, what do I have in there which I'm going to sell to the customer? What do I normally have? Potatoes, yeah, chips, fish. You hungry? No? Burgers. Yeah, you got the idea? Are you going to sell the oil? There's no zakat in the oil, even if you have gallons of it. Are you going to sell the fridge? No zakat. Doesn't matter how much the fridge cost you. Yeah. Are you going to sell the paper that you use to wrap the? No, that isn't really something that you're going to sell. Yeah, unless you actually have it as part of the. Does that make sense? Let's say, for example, I bake cakes at home and sell cakes. What do I have to give zakat on? The ingredients I purchased with the intention of sale. So in my house, if I've got a cabinet and all the ingredients in there are the sale ones, I have to give it on that. Yes, so lots of people they do Etsy, they sell things on Etsy. Maybe there's a woman who sews clothes, she has cloths at home and she's going to sell that. She has to give zakat on these things. Women might be cooking food, selling in the community. If they bought the ingredients for sale, they have to give zakat on if it's on their date of zakat. Does everyone understand this? Yeah.
Just a quick question. Do they, if the business, you say like a charity, so you've got stock to sell, not for personal profit, but to a charity, is that still saying you're doing
So you've got a business that's not a charity.
So no, say if the business is a charity, so the goods that you're going to sell, it's not going to be for personal
So the
profit.
charity would not fall under this because the charity is not a individual that is zakat eligible. Yeah? It's just an entity. It's an account. Does everyone understand this? Now the same, let's say you have a limited company. How do you give zakat on limited company? So limited company, technically, the guy who owns it, technically that's all of his cash is in it. So, I mean legally that's not the case. But Islamically that's. So after tax deduction, whatever amount there is in there, and after he's paid all the wages, he has to give zakat on that. Yeah? And a limited company is a very problematic issue because someone can simply just close down a limited company and do all those things. But why I was again speak to a scholar about this, but that's the general rule. It's the inventory. What is inventory? Anything you bought with the intention of sale. Has anyone ever sold their car? Their own personal car? Have you ever sold your car? Right, you don't have to give zakat on it if you owe that money. Why? Because you didn't buy it with the intention of selling. It's not a business asset. Yeah? Some people are into buying watches and selling Rolex watches. Right? Now if you buy a watch with the intention of selling it, then it becomes a business asset. But if you have your own personal watch, okay, rented property, is there zakat on rented property? No zakat on it. Why? Because you're not selling the property, you're using it like the fryer in the chip shop to sell your product, which is the service of them living here. Yeah. So therefore, if the rental income you have, and it's your 10th of Ramadan, and you have that rental income, you have to give zakat on it. But if you already spent it, invested in something else, no zakat on it.
So what if you're doing a baking business at home?
Yeah.
But at the point of when you buy the flour, you don't buy it for selling. But then you get an order in and you decide, I'm going to use that home stock in order to.
Good question. So if someone, for example, buys ingredients for the house, and someone gives you a call and says, I would like to order a cake, right? And you had no intention of, then you don't give zakat on it. Because it wasn't bought with the intention of. But if that's the way you do things, as in you know you're going to be selling a cake with this, right? Then you should just estimate. If you know you are going to, but if you know you're not going to, it's for yourself, then you don't have to. Then it comes like your car. It's for your own personal use, but if someone came to you and said to you, I want to buy your car for you, and yeah.
So, if you've got, you mentioned limited company. Obviously, if a company pays charity, it comes off the profits. So it's actually tax efficient to give as much of your charitable donations to a company. So can you, as you mentioned, in Islam, we don't differentiate between the different entities. The company and the person is the same. Obviously, we have the legal structures different. So can you pay your personal zakat to that limited company?
And then you want to offset it from there, yeah?
Yeah, just put it on there.
So technically, a limited company, Islamically, you are the owner of that limited company. So you are responsible for whatever is in there. So therefore, if you were to give your zakat from there, and the government recognizes that wealth not to be yours, under one of the children. So in the government, it's recognized not under yours. Islamically, it is yours. It's just you just on the document just put a name. Any other question on inventory? Yeah.
Let's say that rent a studio or something and then use that as part of your business. Would that count as your business asset?
No. A business asset means something physical that can be passed on to someone else and then you take the cash for it. Like software, like for example, software is a new kind of commodity, which is a digital commodity. So if you have a software which you sell to people, then that would be something. But this is the problem with the software is that software is not like in your cellar, you have a shelf of software. Yeah, it's something where you copy and then you pass on. So this is a very difficult one now for ulama. Ulama are still trying to work out what software comes under. But if you have some software, like for example in the olden days they would have computer games or something, I don't know, some floppy drives, then that would be something. Now when it comes to inventory, what value do you have to give zakat at? So technically, this Mufti Taqi Usmani says this, and I think this is the most cautious opinion. If you have priced it, if you have priced and tagged the item, you have to work out the zakat at the sale price. But if you haven't tagged and priced it, wholesale price. Now this is, for example, someone sells second-hand phones, right? So they get phones coming in, they got phones going out. They don't know how much stock they have because they haggle with the sellers. They might sell it, 10, 15 phones to one person. So what I would say is speak to your accountant, maybe try to work out roughly on that day how much you estimate how much you have. So you probably know how much roughly comes in the week or the month and how much goes out. Roughly estimate how much you have and you can use that figure and work out 2.5% of that. Any other business issues? No? Okay.
You want to show up on your stock levels or something like that?
Are you able to find out roughly how much comes in and how much goes out? I mean, if you speak to your accountant, I'm sure your accountant will be able to roughly give an estimate to you. Accountant's able to do that? You're an accountant? I don't think you're an accountant all this time now. I was thinking I want to speak to him about some loopholes. Yeah. So roughly, this is roughly what you would do then. So roughly, so you know how much in that business on a monthly basis would go out. Yeah? And you roughly know how much comes in. If you can roughly estimate between that figure, just use that figure for that day. Yeah? Sometimes you can just ask ChatGPT. Tell ChatGPT your figures and say to ChatGPT, on this day, roughly how much do you think I have? And it kind of gives you a figure, you'll be able to use that. Yeah. I mean, otherwise I know there are other problems, business problems other people have. I've never come across them. Right? Because that's not my area I deal with on a daily basis. So what you can do is you can contact me. If you are unsure, contact me and later on I can speak to some ulama about that. Inshallah. Yeah. Remember, the ultimate thing is we always try to resort back to our ulama because they're the ones who are skilled in this area and they're going to give you a better answer. Okay, next. And anything in the business that is cash. So anything in the business that is cash, you have to give zakat. Because we already talked about that in category number 2. Okay. So let's say, for example, like I have a business. It's called Liaquat and Co business, and this, mashallah, very successful business. Inshallah, it's worth £100,000. So in that £100,000 business, I have the building, I have software, computers, technology in there, cameras, right, furniture, and I also have inventory and I have cash. All I have to work out is how much inventory I've got and how much cash. So let's say I've got £5,000 inventory, and let's say I've got £5,000 cash in there. So how much zakat do I have to give? Yeah, I only have to give zakat on the 10,000, and the 10,000 zakat is going to be 250. Yeah, that's it. So I don't have to give zakat on fixed assets. Fixed assets meaning what? The buildings and all that, and rental property. So anything that is a rental property that you're, like taxi drivers, they don't have to give it on their taxis. If you have a fleet of cars in your taxi company, you don't have to give any zakat on the cars because you're using them to generate money. That's the idea. Anything used to generate your money, you don't have to give zakat on it. Okay, next one now. Number 4 is investments now. A lot of people invest nowadays. How do you work out shares? Because there's lots of types of shares out there. So in the shares, treat the shares the same as business zakat al assets. So let's say this business of mine, which is £100,000 worth value, let's say Abdul Hay Hafizab, he wants to come and invest in my business now. Hafizab says, I want to invest £20,000 into the business. Mashallah, come, you're welcome. So he buys £20,000 worth of assets. So now in this £100,000 business, how much percent does he own? 20, yeah? And how much do I own? 80. Now how is he gonna work out the zakat of the business? So we said already only £10,000 is zakatable. So he's gonna give zakat on 20% of that 10,000. What's 20% of 10,000? 2,000. So 2.5% of 2,000 is £100. £100, yeah? £50? £50. Become an accountant. So £50. That's it. Now you know how to work out shares. So let's say someone contacted me once and he had shares in BT and said to me, how do I work out zakat in BT? Shares I have. So I said, all you have to work out is ask, when they send you the documents, you're the shareholder, contact them and ask them how much inventory do they have and how much cash assets they have. They have to tell you. Once they tell you this, the amount of ownership you have in that company, you can figure out the zakat. Yeah. Now let's say you don't know how much zakat assets they have. You have ISA, which is multiple investments in multiple companies. What do you do there then? Either you can do the nitty-gritty and go through each business and work out 2.5% of each one, which might be a headache. Now I've spoken to some ulama like Mufti Faraz Adam and Mufti Bilal Umarji, and they've said they went through the FTSE 100 in the UK and they found out in all these companies, the most a company has of zakatable assets is 25%. Most companies in the world don't even have, quarter of their. So he said, you can use that 25% benchmark. So let's say, for example, I have an ISA, and in that ISA I have £5,000 ISA. So all I have to do is take 25% of that. What's 25% of 5,000? Yeah, and then I work out 2.5% of that. Does that make sense? I think that's the easier way, right? And that's just going to make things easier for you, inshallah. Any other questions about investments? Now look, if you invest and your intention of investment is quick sale, you're just waiting for it to go up and then you want to sell, you have to give zakat on 2.5% of all of it, whatever its value is, because it becomes category number 3 now. It becomes a business stock. It's like you're buying cars to sell. But if you are investing in a business for dividends or long-term investment, what's a long-term investment? You're going to keep it for 2, 3, 5 years. That's a long-term investment. Then you only have to give zakat on inventory and cash. Make sense? Okay. Next, the last one. Okay, so this is a nice diagram that I made. So let's say this is the business. All you have to give zakat on is what? Stock and cash. And if it's a short-term buy to sell, then you have to give 2.5% of the entire value of the share that you have. Yeah. Okay. Now pensions.
So just before that, you have let's say a product where you have a dual intention. You're not going to sell it unless, like let's say number plate,
Yeah.
I'm going to keep it, but if the right bit comes in or right offer, you might sell it.
Okay, so if a person has a dual intention, let's say for example, you bought a car. If you start using that car yourself and you're waiting for someone to give an offer, it's now become personal. It loses the status of a business stock. But if it's something like a number plate, for example, you have a number plate, yeah, half is Saab, yeah, half is with the 4 Saab, and you're waiting for someone to buy it, then it's a business stock. You're not using it, are you? I understand this. So it's a business stock. So you have to give zakat. Long term is where you're not going to sell it early. You're not. Unless like some guy comes to you, just like you buy a car, you're not going to really sell it until 3-4 years down the line. If someone does come to you and gives you a good offer, you might sell it. Okay, so how do pensions work then? So very, very easy. Pensions, there's something called a defined contribution scheme. That's the only one you give zakat on. What's a defined contribution scheme? When they send you a letter to your house and they say to you, where would you like your investment to go? So you choose the fund where it's supposed to be invested. So the fund manager, he's your, what we call wakil, and now he does all the dealings for you on your behalf. you have to give zakat on this one. However, any other zakat, any other pension out there, all the other pensions, like defined benefit scheme, NHS, teachers, government, all these, no zakat. Because they don't ask you where would you like it invested. So if you ever get asked where would you like it invested, that means it's a private pension. Yeah, it's a defined contribution scheme. But if your company says to you, we will contribute, the word contribute doesn't necessarily mean it's a defined contribution scheme. Contribution has nothing to do with if they allow you to allocate the funds investment. Everyone understand this? Okay. And all other pensions, if you can't choose the investment, it's considered to be out of your control. So give zakat, no zakat. Right. Finally, the liabilities now.
Just a question on the pension, sorry. So say someone's got pensions, so that they meet the threshold that they need to pay zakat, but it's stuck in a pension pot,
Yeah.
but they don't have the cash to pay it.
So if a person has a pension, how do they give the zakat? If it's a defined contribution scheme, they wait until they start getting it, then they have to backdate all the years. Yeah, because they might die.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's tax as well. All right, liabilities. Now, liabilities are two types. Deductible liabilities are the ones which are outstanding. So, outstanding means anything that you owe someone in that particular month, which is outstanding. Yeah. So bills, your subscriptions, your school fees for the kids, madrasa fees, anything which is in that month that you owe, you can deduct that from your assets. But only if it's outstanding. I remember once a guy called me, goes to me, Sheikh, in October I paid this much for petrol, and he's going through the whole list. He's saying to me, I paid this much for shopping, this much for travels, expenses, and I'm saying, brother, why are you telling me all this for? Because yeah, to work out my zakat. I go, no, zakat is not on what you've already paid for. It's not tax where you have to show the tax man all your. Right? Zakat is on whatever on that day you owe. It's outstanding. No, that's what it was. So that day is outstanding, and some ulama have said that month because it's difficult. Now, sometimes, for example, like let's say, you've got a subscription, let's say broadband subscription, and you can't get out of it. It's a fixed 18 months or whatever it is, 12 months, and you can't get out. And even if you try to get out of it, you're still going to be charged penalty fees until the end. Some of the ulama have spoken to them and they've said you can also consider that an outstanding fee as long as it's within 12 months. It has to be within 12 months. So this is why long-term debts, let's say someone has got into a mortgage and they're paying off 30-year mortgage. Now obviously 30-year mortgage is going to be in the thousands. So in that case you use 12 months. Whatever you owe the financial institute in the next 12 months minus interest, you're allowed to deduct that from your assets. Everyone understand this? Yeah. However, things that are non-deductible, you can't deduct future expenses. So if you know every month, this is how much I pay for family shopping, and this is how much I pay for bills. You can't deduct that. It has to be outstanding. And anything that's not payable within the next 12 months. If it's not payable in 12 months, then you don't deduct it. So how do you calculate? Zakatable assets minus deductible assets equals zakat calculation. Right, last slide now. Who you can't give zakat to? You can't give it to your spouse, yeah, because obviously you have to take care of them anyway. Can the wife give it to the husband? This is a difference of opinion amongst the ulama in this. But generally, many of them say no. This is the view I take. Children and grandchildren. You can't give it to your children. You can't give it anyone that's born from you. And you can't give it from anyone that you are born from. Your parents and your grandparents. You can give it to your siblings, brothers and sisters, and you can give it to your uncles and aunties, and you can give it to your nephews and nieces, if they are from one of those 8 categories. You can't give it to non-Muslims, and you can't give it to a wealthy person. Now, another one is you can't give it to someone who is 100% from the lineage of the Prophet ﷺ through their fathers. Father. If they're from their fathers, they can't take zakat. If they're from their mothers, they can take zakat. So we don't consider from the mother to be a sayyid. It's only through the fathers. Yeah. And question and answers now. Anybody questions? don't know the Shafi
Okay.
Mazhab. Yeah, I haven't trained in that, so I wouldn't be able to comfortable answering. Any other question? Yeah.
The question regarding the student loans.
Student loans,
So,
yeah.
let's say someone's taking a student loan and then they have to pay it back as well. So they can't say.
So technically, the student loan, you have to. So how does the student loan work? How much do they take out from your wages? It's automatically deducted, isn't it? 9%, is it? Yeah. So student loan, it would be the same. You would deduct if they are going to start deducting. Once they start deducting, then you can take that out. If they haven't started deducting, then you don't take it out. Because if they said you have to earn, is it 26,000, 29,000? Any other question?
You might have answered it before already. I think I asked something similar. So it's just a bit, do you know, in terms of the recipient, how
Yeah.
you verify the recipient?
Yeah.
So say, for example, I know someone in the Gaza,
Yeah.
I send them some money,
Yeah.
I say distribute it to the poor
Yeah.
as Zakat. I'd expect to try verify from the people.
Okay, good
how
question.
Much, if they're not
So good question. This is the question about how much should you investigate before you give it to the person. So the ulama say you only have to investigate from the outside. As long as from the outside to you, your heart feels comfortable, they look like someone who can receive zakat, give it. And even if you find out a week later that you were wrong, it doesn't matter, zakat's done. Yeah, the Prophet ﷺ said there was a man, he went at night time and he gave his zakat, he thought he was a poor person. Turned out to be his dad the next day. And his zakat was given. Because at that time, this is the best thing you could do. Now look, when you give your money as zakat to someone, it's a bit humiliating sometimes when you say to them, this is zakat. And especially when you have to ask them, oh brother, how much wages do you make? How much have you got in your pocket? Jump up and down. Yeah, those kind of things, humiliating. When I was in madrasa in Pakistan, I studied. People used to give me zakat money to give to people. So I felt embarrassed, my own friends who were poor, asking them who needs zakat. Because then they won't feel comfortable around me. So what I would do is this, I would say, oh, brother, if you ever need money to borrow, let me know, I can help you out. And give back anytime you want. So they would be comfortable asking me to borrow money. So I'd give them that money, and they would think it's a loan, but then later on I would say, brother, it's okay, you don't have to give it back. And then they would think, I'm a very generous guy. Now on the day of Qiyam, I'm going to have to explain to them, I'm not generous. But I didn't want to humiliate them. And that was it. So even till today, they don't know I gave zakat. They think it was a loan that I waived. So refugees, generally the rule for refugees is that they are poor. This is what we generally understand. But if you know that a refugee has wealth, mal, then you can't give it. I mean, sometimes refugees will come to meet you. They come to the masjid, ask questions, right? So you kind of know they're not allowed to work anywhere, or if they're allowed to work, they can only work limited hours. They can't own anything in this country. So generally, you would assume that they would have less than 1,200. It's a lot of money. Who has 1,200 lying around? Yeah, so I would say you can give them Insh'Allah. There's a lot of people in your own community who are deserving of zakat. You'd be surprised, but they just don't want to say.
Should Zakat be given as cash, or can it be given as, like, say, like a food parcel?
Okay, good
Because a lot of
question.
charities give it as food parcels.
So should zakat be given as cash? Yes. This is the default state. It should be given as cash. Because that belongs to them. You have no right in it. But if it's a place where it's difficult for them to do anything with the cash, or they might get robbed over there. Because you might go to a refugee camp and you might hand out cash, and then people see you handing out cash and they'll go later on because there's no security there, and they'll just bully them, take the money off them. So a lot of these places, it would be better in today's times, I would say, to actually give them food, because for them to go and take the cash, go to a market, buy the food, because I went to Afghanistan last year, and in Afghanistan, it's pointless giving them cash, because even that food they can't get in that village. If they have to go 1 hour, hire a car, and by that time they spent all the zakat money just trying to logistics. So this is why a lot of these charities, they have these on board. Yeah, because there's GRT, GRT charity, and Suffa relief. So they ask me a lot of questions. So I help them, with answering their fiqh questions, and I've been on the ground with the Suffa as well, so I kind of know exactly what happens in a lot of these places. But ideally, if you can give cash to someone, that is the best thing.
So can you, we had the 8 categories. Are there any categories that are more priority, or can you personally prioritize what you're going to give the zakat
Okay,
to?
good question. So, in these 8 categories, are there any categories that you should give to more than the others? No. Whichever one you want to give to. Like, for example, who decides that this student who is trying their best to earn halal and is in debt is less than that person who is, doesn't have a roof over their head? Who decides which one is? If Allah wanted, He could have just said, give your zakat to the poor, that's it. But the reason He's given these categories is because in different situations, the best thing to do is give zakat to your close relatives who are in need. You get double the sawab, double reward.
Generally speaking, when you're giving zakat, should you just give it, and whoever's going to manage it, it's for them to decide. Because I shouldn't say, okay, I want it specific from decide.
Good question. So, when you give your zakat, if for example, let's say you come to me and you say to me, I want you to give my zakat to the poor orphans of this area, I have to give it because I'm just your wakil. I don't have any other sayings. Yeah, it's like, for example, if you give me money to go and give to, have some, I've got to give it. I can't say, I feel like giving it. I'm going to give it to you because I'm just a wakil. However, in the Islamic state, in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, when the zakat collector would collect the money, he would know better who to give it to. You have no right to say to him where he gives it. Now, saying this, what people have to understand is, when a charity goes on the ground, sometimes it's very hard for them to find the precise person you want to give it to. So in that case, I would say you just generally give it to them and say, give it to the people you feel who need it the most in that area. This is the thing how people should. Like, for example, sometimes hospitals, how do you give zakat to a hospital? Can a hospital take zakat? No, they can't. Can a mosque take zakat? No. Can you give zakat to build a well? No, you can't, because it has to be given to someone. Is it in 8 categories? A human being has to receive it. So the way the hospital works is this: you give your zakat to them, and then they will get a document, a contract, and they get the patient to sign it, saying, you hand over to me the rights of this money for me to spend it on you in whichever way I see fit. That's the wakala program. So when you give it to them, they're going to spend it like that. Yeah? So there's a lot of intricacies. It's not a black and white world we live in. It's very nuanced. So a lot of these things require understanding how things work, especially at these hospitals and charities. On the ground, you might think you want to give your money to go there, but on the ground, lots of things happen.
Can you give all of your zakat to one person to the extent it takes that person?
Good question. Can you give all your zakat to one person? Technically, yes. Legally, because Allah says in the Quran, your zakat goes to these people. So if you were to give all your zakat to, let's say, a poor person, right, and you gave it to him, your zakat's done. However, the problem is now, let's say you gave all your zakat to him now, and then every year on that same date, the 10th of Ramadan, you give all your zakat to him. That means this guy now has become eligible to give zakat. He's a zakat giver now. He can't receive it on that day. Yeah. So this is why some ulama say what you should do is give them below the nisab. So now is £1,200. So big. Give him £1,300. But technically, you can give all of it. If it's like someone in debt, then clearly, if he had £5,000 debt and you decide to give all 5,000, and that 5,000 goes towards, that's fine.
So if it's somebody who's elderly abroad, they don't have any means of earning, and they can't, you give them, and then it takes them above the nisab, but by the end of the year they fall below.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Once someone contacted me and said to me, a sister contacted me and said, Mona, I want to give my zakat to my cousin in Bangladesh to build a house, but I don't want them to use it on anything else. So I said, you can't do that. You're going to give it to them. It's up to them how they want to use it. It's not your wealth. She goes, yeah, but this is the interesting part. She goes, but he's going to go and buy food for his family. I said, why? If he needs to buy food for his family, isn't that more important than having a roof over his head? So this is she kind of thought she wants a long-term project for him, but it doesn't belong to her. She doesn't have the right to dictate how the money is supposed to be used by the recipient. Any other question? Yeah.
Education fees or tuition fees is set for a particular month. Can you deduct it?
Yeah. So if education fees is set for a particular semester or a month, and the rule is that once you start the course, you are expected to pay, then you can deduct that from zakat. You can actually, like, you might be even zakat eligible.
The family decides to sell it and pay for it. Takes a couple of years to sell it. And you say there's a gap.
So if the family decides, so the family have received a house in inheritance, the kids, yeah, and now they want to sell this. Okay, so remember they didn't buy it with the intention of selling, did they? So it's not zakat al asset. It's not zakat al asset.
Only once they get the proceeds.
Once they get the proceeds from that and it's their zakat date and they have that with them, then they give it on that day.
Some people say you can, I've heard before that you can use zakat for bettering the community for infrastructure projects and things like that. But clearly, from what you just said,
Yeah, zakat cannot be given to anything but human being has to be. Can't give it to build roads, no mosques, no madrasas. It's got to be given to human beings. So in madrasas when they give zakat, when they come to collect zakat, what they basically do is, you give them your zakat, they become a wakil on behalf of the students, and then they will now give the students and they will spend it on the madrasa because they make an agreement with the student, and so the student says, okay, use it as you wish. Yeah, like that. Yeah.
So, you know, like those food packages
Yeah.
that you mentioned,
Yeah.
but does that count as zakat?
Yeah, should normally the food packages that they ask for, charities ask to collect money for. So those food packages, they take that money, they will buy food. I've seen how they do it. What they do is, like a Suffa does this relief. They have a guy on the ground who will go to different shops to see the value of rice or whatever, and they'll buy the most appropriate one, not too expensive, not too cheap. They buy the appropriate one, they package it themselves, and then they'll give it to the recipient.
Gold. The woman only has gold, no cash.
Yeah. If a woman only has gold, so a lady contacted me once, she said to me, Maulana, I've got 350 grams of gold, what do I do? Oh, mashallah. Are you looking for rishta? So I said to her, okay, mashallah, that's a lot. I mean, you've got 350 grams of gold, today it's worth like 40, 50 grand. Yeah. So she said, but I don't have the cash for it. What do I do? So I said, you got two options. Option number one is either you can pay the zakat over a long period of time, spread your payment over a long period of time, pay a little bit until it's paid off, ideally within the next 5 months. If you can't do that, then what you do, you have to sell some of the gold. It's not yours. A lady contacted me in London. She said she has a house she bought for sale. It's a very small house, she said, 3-bedroom house. I said, how much is it? She said, 1.5 million. I said, shukr, we are living in Birmingham and yeah, 1.5 million, you can buy 10 houses with that. So she goes, the problem is I don't have the cash for the zakat. I mean, you have to give the zakat because you bought it with the intention of selling. So 1.5 million, how much is that? How much zakat is that? Loads says. So I said, look, what you do is just trying to figure, so maybe once you get the house sold, backdate all the years. Give it like that. Yeah. Usman, you got any questions? Yeah.
£10,000, you know, that what is low.
Yeah.
So you pay the 250 every year.
Every year, or once you get it back. Because okay, if you borrowed someone money and you lost hope that you're going to get it back, and then one of your du'as came true, and 20 years later you got it back, you don't have to work it out. Because you lost hope, it's gone now. And when you get it back, it's just like some bonus. Any other question? Finish? Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair.